was recently invited to get some hands-on time with Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, and after over 2 hours with it, I walked away feeling like it wasn't at all what I was expecting.
This is a museum!
Indiana Jones and the Great Circle comes from the people that brought you the excellent Nazi fighting action of the latest Wolfensteins, Machine Games. Indy seems like a natural fit for the studio because if there is one man who loves to punch a Nazi as much as BJ Blazkowicz, it's Indy.
That little guy packed a punch.
But this is no Wolfenstein dressed in a fedora situation. This is more of a first-person, occasionally third-person, puzzle platformer stealth action brawler. There is shooting, it's less of a run and gun and more of a gun then run kind of game, but we'll get to that in a minute. Our demo opened with Professor Jones napping at Marshall College before a break-in disturbs him and a precious artifact is stolen, kicking off the whole adventure.
He took the cat mummy, Marcus.
The well-directed cutscenes, combined with some lovely detailed graphics, character models, performance capture, and familiar soundtrack immediately set a wonderfully familiar cinematic tone. It felt like I was literally stepping into the opening act of one of his movies. But what didn't immediately strike me was Indy's voice. I completely forgot Harrison Ford wasn't voicing him, with the talented Troy Baker taking on the role and delivering a performance that avoids sounding like an impersonation, and simply felt right.
Alright, pal. You can't sleep here.
So, it looks and sounds the part, but how does it play? Well, our first mission had us skulking through the Vatican, naturally, trying to make contact with an old friend of Indy's. Of course, it's occupied by fascists, so you'll be trying to get through without being spotted. This was a fairly linear level, but also offered a few paths you could take. You can mantle up ledges and use your whip to pull you up to certain spots, or act as a swing over gaps. So, instead of confronting patrolling guards head-on, I could simply climb up and over them. There's a fairly traditional arsenal of stealth tools at your disposal, sneaking up behind guards for an instant takedown, throwing items to distract them, or picking up knocked out guards and moving them out of sight of patrols. While a big, obvious circle appears over guards' heads, letting you know if you've got their attention. While stealth is a big focus, Indy isn't afraid of a bit of biffo, so if you do get spotted, you're more than capable of holding your own and aren't overly punished for being spotted. A basic melee system lets you punch, block, and wind up power attacks, while you can also, gleefully, pick up a whole heap of things around you to use as temporary improvised weapons. Also, using your whip to force enemies to drop their weapons before picking it up yourself and bonking them over the head with it is extremely satisfying. I'd say it's an intentionally messy and forgiving stealth system, which I enjoyed, and feels right for Indy, who's meant to be a bit of a clumsy, scrappy hero. And of course, nothing is stopping you from punching and whipping your way through the whole level too. I got the impression this level was more of a tutorial though, and afterwards we were whisked away to the Giza level, which felt like quite a different beast and presumably represented more of the core of what the Great Circle's levels would offer. This was a fairly large open area, taking place in the base of the pyramids, the Sphinx, and some surrounding Nazi camps, as well as a small town and some work sites. It's large enough to offer some fast travel points, but not large enough that you need a vehicle to get around, taking just a couple of minutes to run from one side to the other. You have a main quest to follow, but can take things on as you please, wandering around, talking to people to find side quests, stumbling into fights and little tombs. During my wandering, I found a merchant selling a lighter that was essential for my tomb diving, as well as a worker's outfit that helped disguise me and make wandering past guards much easier. You'll find things like cash, collectibles, as well as little notes you can add into your journal, which acts as a map, and handy keeper of all the quests and info you've picked up. You also have a camera that you can use to snap a photo of specific things, which can provide some extra facts about an item or person, or even hints about a puzzle. Doing a lot of these actions will earn you adventure points, which can be spent to unlock skills from any skill books you find in the world. These range from things like making your melee attacks stronger, health regen faster, and Lucky Hat, which lets you revive yourself by picking up your hat after a potentially lethal hit. Seeing plus 50 adventure points flash up does feel very gamey and kind of took me out of the fantasy a bit, but I do always appreciate having some meaningful upgrades to hunt down. Combat here felt even more optional. It's pretty easy to just leg it around the place on the outskirts of camps and outrun any guards that spot you, but still there is a lot of them, so you'll inevitably run into trouble. As mentioned before though, you do get the chance to pick up guns and get blasting, but this definitely felt like it's not encouraged. In fact, we were given basically no footage of any gunplay. This is all we see of a gun in the footage we were supplied with, so you'll have to just use your imagination. The second after I opened fire, a bullet always seemed to find me from somewhere off screen and knock me down. Guns also just didn't feel that great to use, which I guess is fair. Indy isn't Rambo. But of course, what Indy wouldn't feel right without are big temples with elaborate puzzles. And from what I got to play, I didn't really get a chance to see that in action. I did get to solve a couple of basic puzzles that were more or less just about matching some symbols with the surrounding information, like putting an Egyptian relic with other bits of Egyptian stuff, which were fine, but hardly head scratches. That's my fault though. I just spent too long wandering around the world and poking my head into tombs and hassling Nazis, that by the time I did start to get into a big tomb and major puzzle, I was tapped on the shoulder and told my time was up. So I guess I'll have to wait and see what mysteries the final game holds. And with that, I was left feeling like Indiana Jones and the Great Circle was quite unique. Its blend of stealth, exploration, puzzles, and combat felt familiar, but also didn't really feel like any game I'd played before. We'll have to wait and see if the experience holds up across the whole game, but at the very least, it did make me feel like I was stepping into the Fedora of Indiana Jones and embarking on a grand adventure, and it's one I'm excited to see more of.